What's up, everybody? Following Jake Paul's TKO victory in the 6th round over Platinum Mike Perry inside the boxing ring last night, it is very apparent to me that the Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul boxing match cannot happen. We have got to put a stop to this, but we'll get to that a little later on in the video. First, I want to discuss the event a little bit, and then I want to talk about what we saw from Jake Paul against Platinum Mike Perry, because I was actually quite surprised in this boxing match. But first, I do want to mention, I broke down this fight the moment it was announced, right? There wasn't a huge buildup to this fight. There was about a month. This was kind of a late blooming type of matchup, right? Because it was supposed to be Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul on this date. Mike Tyson had had some health issues. They had to move that fight back to November. So Mike Perry steps in to take on Jake Paul in Tampa, Florida. And my initial reactions were, look, I really like Platinum Mike Perry. If you're a combat sport fan, I think it's very hard to not like Mike Perry. What he represents, the king of violence over in BKFC, reinventing his career, all of those different things. But I had said in my breakdown video, Jake Paul was unfortunately going to knock out Mike Perry. And I had mentioned, Jake Paul has a very, very smart team around him, man. They specifically target guys with certain qualities, one of which they saw in Mike Perry is he's a big name now. He's tough as hell. He does have power, but he swings wild, and he's incredibly hittable. Mike Perry, you saw last night, very flat-footed, no head movement, just kind of wandering forward with his hands down towards Jake Paul. It was a disaster from the get-go. But what we saw from Jake Paul, I keep telling you guys, man, whether you like him or not, the guy is a very good boxer. Now, is he world class? Is he like Canelo and these other big names inside of boxing? Absolutely not. But that doesn't mean that we can't give the credit to Jake Paul, because he absolutely deserves credit, man. This guy improves each and every time he steps into the boxing ring, whether he's fighting, Uber drivers, he's fighting scrubs, whatever you want to say, retired MMA guys, however you want to put it. What you can't take away from Jake Paul, he's dedicated to the sport. Maybe he's on some shit. Who fucking knows? The guy looked absolutely massive next to Mike Perry in there. I know he was preparing to go up to heavyweight. I mean, he weighed in at 200 pounds. Mike Perry weighed in at 196. And you could tell Mike Perry, he didn't cut any weight to make this. I mean, he was trying to get close to what Jake Paul was going to weigh in at. So you saw the size difference the minute the bell rang. I mean, Jake Paul looked like he was in a different weight class. But what really impressed me about Jake Paul was the composure, the way that when he had Mike Perry hurt, he didn't just bum rush in and start winging wild shots. He started to pick his shots. You saw him go into the uppercut. That left hook was sneaky fast. His hand speed has improved. We know the power is there. And the way that Jake Paul is tending to operate in the boxing ring, man, it's hard to not give the guy the credit he deserves, because each and every time we see small improvements. We saw him in there, going back to when he fought Ben Askren, then Woodley, and I know he lost to Tyson Fury's brother, Tommy Fury, but we have seen the improvements. And I do want to see Jake Paul in there next against an actual legit boxer, right? I don't know, it doesn't necessarily have to be a huge name in boxing, but come on, man. Let's get a legit pro guy in there, a guy that is actually embedded in the sport, takes this thing 100% seriously in terms of the boxing. Not some former MMA guy, not a part-time boxer, a full-time dedicated boxer that has a pretty good record on him. That's what I want next for Jake Paul. And people are hard on Platinum Mike Perry this morning, right? People are out there saying, what was that? What was that? Look, I mentioned, guys, Mike Perry, as tough as he is, boxing is not a tough man's sport, right? You can be tough, and yes, it does help, but you've got to have head movement. You have to have defense. You have to have a good jab, and you have to have pretty good footwork. And unfortunately, as much as we like Platinum Mike Perry, he has power, but he loops on a lot of his shots. He doesn't have the best head movement, and he's very flat-footed, and he was cutting no angles. He was standing directly in front of Jake Paul the entire time, and that's what I told you guys, man. Look, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here too much. I'm just saying, I saw this coming, and it hurts, because I really like Mike Perry. But we saw, and I mentioned, they strategically picked these opponents. If you're a guy like Nate Diaz, who has good cardio and good durability, they're going to accept that fight because Nate doesn't have, some of the most power out there, right? They're going to pick and choose these matchups, where Perry, yes, he does have power, but he doesn't have good footwork, he doesn't have good head movement, and he is there to be hit. That's why they picked Mike Perry, and now you see Jake out there posting, I beat the king of violence, I'm the king of violence. So now he's going to run with that narrative. So, I mean, thanks, I guess to BKFC for letting this happen. I mean, it's driving me nuts. These guys have these big names, these big platforms, and they come over and they let Jake Paul, they don't let Jake Paul. It's just Jake Paul is skilled. And I don't know if they overlook him or what the deal is, but Jake Paul, it's time to give him his credit. I've been giving him the credit before. I even said in that video that he was, his boxing has dramatically improved. People gave me shit for that. They're saying his fights are rigged and all these different things. And look, Jake Paul's just getting better. Can we just, come to the realization that the guy has good speed. He has good timing. He has a ton of power. I mean, that body shot he landed on Mike Perry early in the fight definitely hurt Mike Perry badly. Then he started to throw the jab out there, started to stick and move, started to set up that hook. He was, going to the uppercuts. You saw Jake Paul patient, poised. I was impressed for what I saw. Now it's time to face an actual legit boxer, Jake Paul. Will we get that? Probably not, because Jake Paul and his team, they know what they want. They want a big name guy that's from a different combat sport that they can bring over where everyone's like, this is the guy to beat Jake Paul, and everyone kind of rallies behind that guy. Then Jake Paul beats him. Then he posts a bunch of memes online, and it's a great marketing strategy, but at the end of the day, it's time to see Jake Paul face a legit boxer. Now, let's get into why this Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul boxing match, it has to be stopped, guys. This has to be stopped. Listen, Mike Tyson is one of my favorite combat athletes of all time, maybe even number one. The man is 58 years old. The fight was supposed to happen last night, July 20th, on Netflix. It was supposed to be a huge card, and we saw some things have to get shifted because Mike Tyson had some health issues, and now it's been moved back to November, and it's just that Jake Paul's, what is he, 27 years of age? The guy looks massive. He looks fast. He looks speedy, and guys, in his prime, Mike Tyson it's not even a question. He would murder Jake Paul in there, right? I mean, but the guy, I don't care how good Mike Tyson looks on the pads, man. Let him just do the impressive pad work, post videos, and we can all sit there and be like, oh, but what if? But don't actually let Mike Tyson get back in there, man. The guy is 58 years old, and Jake Paul is getting better and better and better. His speed, his timing, his power is devastating, and you could tell the way that his body looked. I mean, people were talking about performance enhancers and all this and that. I mean, the guy, he looks like a fat heavyweight at this point, right? But the thing is, his speed is there. He's young, he's hungry, he's motivated, and he wants this, and he's trying to collect these heads of these big name guys that are a little bit past their prime or are in their prime, like Platinum Mike Perry, but they're not particularly boxers. Where I get it. Mike Tyson is a legend boxer. He's past his prime. He's a huge name. And again, it's the narrative that Jake Paul and his team are looking for. Mike Tyson, 58 years old. He has to be the guy to take out Jake Paul. It's Mike Tyson. And you get all these old heads who are tuning in now because they're like, Mike Tyson's making a return. Mike Tyson is having health issues, guys, and you want him back in the boxing ring against a young, hungry, motivated guy, and Jake Paul, who's 27, I believe, years of age, with crazy power, getting better and better with time. And it's just crazy. It's crazy, man. Like, this has to be stopped. Do not let this go on. It's not to say that Mike Tyson can't go in there with that peekaboo style and, head bob and weave. How'd you like that impression there? Head bob and weave, come across, throw those uppercuts, come upstairs, land a nasty shot, and sleep Jake Paul. I mean, that would be the dream of, I think, everyone at this point. But is it going to happen? No, it's not going to happen, guys. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I don't want to see it. Mike Tyson's 58 years of age. He is almost 60. And he's going to be going in there with a 27-year-old guy who's literally eats, sleeping, and breathing boxing. And everyone's like, oh, the Disney characters. You heard Jake Paul last night. He loves to, you got beat up by a Disney. He's not that guy anymore, man. He's a dedicated boxer who trains like a professional. He eats, sleeps, and breathes this. And I get that Mike Tyson is Mike Tyson, but still, it's time for Jake Paul to get in there with a guy that's around his age, someone that has, is competitive and active in the sport of boxing. I would absolutely 1,000% be rooting for Mike Tyson. Do I think that Mike Tyson has a chance? Absolutely, it's Mike Tyson. Whether he's 98 years old, whether, he's in a wheelchair, whatever he is, Mike Tyson hits incredibly hard and he's still Mike Tyson. But let's be honest, 58 years of age against a young, hungry, motivated Jake Paul who's getting better with time. And I understand that Mike Tyson is an actual boxer. He has much better movement than even a 32-year-old Platinum Mike Perry. But if these guys are not seeing these shots that Jake Paul is throwing because they are fast and their head is getting snapped back with a jab and these shots are landing, it's hard for me to think that a 58, I keep saying 58 because he's 58. Like a Jake Paul's going to be stepping in there with this guy, and it just doesn't feel right to me. It feels crooked. It feels bizarre, and I find it hard to believe that if these shots are landing on guys that are a lot younger, who have, their eyesight is completely dialed in, they're in the prime of their life, really, in that 30-some-year-old range, or even in their 40s. I mean, these guys have really good eyesight still at this time. And you're talking, you start to get up there close to your 60s, the eyesight, some of those things, the reflexes, they start to go. And while I think Mike Tyson's style, like I've said this time and time again on my channel, if you have that style like a Roy Jones Jr., that does not translate later in your career, right? Because the minute the eyesight goes, the minute the reaction time goes, when you have that hands down style, time's up. But Mike Tyson holds those hands high. We know about that peekaboo style, the head movement, the quick side to side motion. I mean, there's a chance. Don't get me wrong. This has to be stopped, man. This has to be stopped. I want to see the guy in there like with a legit boxer at this point. I'm not saying Mike Tyson's not a legit boxer. I mean an active, legit boxer, not a guy who's 58 years old, hasn't competed in years. And the last time he did compete, he competed in an exhibition against an old Roy Jones. Come on, man. Come on. But if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, comment your thoughts down below on last night's performance by Jake Paul, and give me your thoughts on if you guys still want to see the Jake Paul-Mike Tyson bout that is still scheduled to take place November 20th on Netflix. So, I don't know. I know we'll all be tuning in, so I get why they're booking the fight. I get it, the intrigue and all these different things, but I don't know, man. It just makes me sad. I hate seeing this kind of shit. So, thanks for watching. See you next time.